Hi viewers, this is the second part of the French Revolution. In the previous part, we talked about nature, causes, and events of the French Revolution. And today we will talk about the effects of the French Revolution in England. This question is really important from examination point of view, and the examiner can ask question like what were the impacts or the effects of the French Revolution on England. Definitely French Revolution completely changed the France in all aspects, in all walks of life, including social, political, economic, and even psychological. Now we will talk about the effects of French Revolution in England, and this revolution had very significant effects on the psyche of the people in England and even across the globe. But specific to the point, we will talk about the effects of the revolution in England. The first one is influence on the political thought of British. When the French Revolution took place, the British they wholeheartedly welcomed this revolution because the people were suffering from all kind of atrocities. They were in very miserable conditions, and they were denied all social, political, and economic rights. So, thus, they wholeheartedly welcome this revolution that now the people will be given their rights, and even there is more, there are high chances to wage a war under a monarch or under a dictator as compared to a democratic setup. So, this is why they wholeheartedly welcome this revolution. And in England, many societies like Society of Constitutional Information, Society of Friends of the People, London Corresponding Society, they all came up and they all established as a result of this revolution, because the people also thought of a revolution on the same line, because the people were also, until now in Britain, they were suppressed to great extent, but not like that of the France. The people in England, but when they came to know the atrocities, the destruction of the French Revolution, they changed their views regarding the French Revolution. And people desire to keep their country away from the influence of this revolution, because they had seen those atrocities and those whatever happened in this meantime of revolution, because earlier England had experienced a revolution in the form of glorious revolution, which was without shedding a single drop of blood. But the revolution in France, it was completely of bloodshed, and things were in a kind of very destructive nature as a result of French Revolution. Uh, uh, Burks, who was the leader of the Whig Party, he was calling those freedom fighters as the architects of the ruin, or the architects of destructions. So this is how the influence on the British Revolution and the influence on the British political thought was dynamic and changing. First, they wholeheartedly welcome this, and then experiencing the results of the French Revolution, they later on change their views regarding French Revolution. Now coming to the political influence of French Revolution on England. We have many prominent writers, we have prominent those political leaders, figures in England who were involved or who were the leaders of their respective parties. So, what was the influence on those political leaders of the French Revolution? First, we coming to talk about the Charles Sparks attitude, who was also the leader of the Whig Party, along with Borks, who was whom he considered is his teacher in politics. So, what was the attitude of Charles Sparks, belonging to Whig Party? Uh, he always raised voice against tyranny and injustice and cruelty, and he felt excited at the fall of Bastille prison. Uh, when Fitz started the policy of suppression, Fox opposed him because in the previous lecture in video number 31, we talked about the policies of the Fit, who was the his policies before French Revolution, domestic policies, and then domestic policies after French Revolution, and then we talked about the foreign policies of Pitt before French Revolution, and then foreign policy after French Revolution, because he was prime minister in this during the span of the French Revolution. So he parted his way from Fit and from his party when he started suppressing people, which Fox was not in favor of. Then coming to Bork's attitude. Bork's attitude, he was also leader of the Whig Party, and he vehemently opposed the French Revolution and called those revolutionary as the architects of the ruin or destruction. In his book, Reflection on the French Revolution in 1790, he vividly apprehended that the germs of the French Revolution would cross into other countries and undermine their political stability. Burke advised the British people to keep themselves away from the French Revolution and its influence. Burke was not in favor of the French Revolution influence. He was deadly against the French Revolution, and he advised his people to keep away from this revolution. Now coming to the attitude of uh, Tom Paine in James William Goodwin, who also remained the Prime Minister of England. Tom Paine in his book Rights of Man and James William Goodwin in his book Political Justice oppose the views as were expressed by Burke. Burke was against the French Revolution, and Tom Paine and William Goodwin, they were in favor of the French Revolution. Because they view that the government or the British government, they should change their attitude and they should curb the malpractices in judiciary and administration and other government functionaries. So these political influence, Charles Sparks' attitude and Burke's attitude, Tom Paine's attitude, and then William Goodwin's attitude toward the French Revolution, or the impacts of the French Revolution we talked about, and political influence. Now, effects on Pitt's domestic policy. What were the impacts of the French Revolution on Pitt's domestic policy? We talked about in detail in the previous video, but we were just giving a slight touch to the domestic policy he adopted in this in recurring of the French Revolution. Pitt, whom we call is first he was liberal, and then he became conservative. He welcomed the French Revolution, but when France witnessed the reign of terror, he withdrew his support to the revolution later on. In this regard, Pitt took the following measure to curb the influence of the French Revolution in England. So what were those measures? The first one is the Alien Act 1793 was passed by Pitt, under which all those foreigners they were who were uh, instigating people underline a French Revolution, they were turned out of the country. Then Habeas Corpus Act was enacted in 1795 and was suspended. According to this act, anybody could be put or pushed behind bars for unlimited period of time and could be arrested for no valid and explicit reason. And then the third one is the suppression of the Society Act was passed, and according to this act, societies who were propagating revolutionary ideas were banned in the country. And the fourth one is the Seditious Meeting Act was passed, and this banned all political associations under this act. And the fifth one was censorship was imposed on literature and newspaper. And the factory workers were disallowed to form employees and trade union. They were not allowed to form unions under the act. Pitt opposed all the moves which aimed at reform and banned those society which demanded reforms in England. As we talked about that Pitt turned against reform. Earlier he was in favor of reforms, but now he turned against reforms, and he was not letting anybody to bring reforms in the parliament or in England. He became strongly against the reforms in the country. What were the impacts of French Revolution on Pitt's foreign policy? In 1792, France won Belgium and opened the river of uh, Scheldt for shipping. Uh, this was a shipping river which won by France is a result of the War of Austerlitz. And this shipping river uh, become a potential cause for the destruction of commercial activity of England. This war took place in 1805 when Pitt was Prime Minister, and by the very next year in 1806 he was died, and he said that it was the cancer of the Austerlitz war that become a cause of my death. So England lose this war of Austerlitz against the France, and they also received a huge blow in commercial activities. So what Pitt did in response, he organized three forms of coalition that we talked about in the previous lecture. First coalition, second coalition, and third coalition in foreign policies, where he made alliances with other great powers like Austria, Russia, Turkey, to keep check on France, or to curb the tentacles of France, or to limit France's power. So he formed three coalition in view of foreign policies with other great powers to check the power of the France. The social effects of French Revolution on England. On account of this revolution, reforms pertaining to the parliament and factories, they were suspended for about 40 years, and the people's personal liberty was also denied to them, and censorship was imposed on newspaper and other publications uh, who were favoring the French Revolution. So, in social effects, we can say many acts were passed in this regard to curb the influence of the French Revolution. And economic effects on England of the French Revolution, we can say financial difficulties England faced, and during the wartime, money was lavishly spent in supporting the allies. As we talked about, that England had formed different alliances, three alliances, and the production of war material. So they spent their money on war material and supporting their allies. Thus, they lavishly spended their money, which resulted into financial difficulties of England. The Bank of England become thus the people started withdrawing money from the Bank of England uh, due to lack of trust in England because of feeling a very severe financial crisis. The prices of commodity was also on rise, soaring very high, and the minimum uh, wages, the very minimum wages would be given to the workers, those working in factories and industries. Thus, financial difficulties created as a result of the French revolutions because France completely changed a democratic setup and was bargaining with the passage of time and becoming a great power with the passage of time after revolution. So it was a challenge for England to curb the power, the exceeding or the expanding power of the France. So they had to to do to take any step against France in this regard, where they spend their money, which resulted into the financial difficulties of England. Then we have the storage of food. As we already talked about, that the Industrial Revolution already depleted the agriculture industry, and now England would import the foodstuffs from the other countries, while their main focus was on the industrial goods. They were uh, exporting industrial goods and importing food uh, stuffs, food commodities. The England had to import food from Eastern Europe, from Poland, and from other countries of Europe, which stopped by France as a result of war and gaining advantages in the naval war, where they blocked all the naval routes of England, which resulted in food shortages in England. The prices rose up, and the wages of the people become very minimum. So thus food shortages were created in England as a result of the French Revolution, or as a result of the impacts of the French Revolution. Then the pitiable condition of the farmers. The farmers, they were in very terrible conditions. The big landowners earn a lot by producing more and more of grains on their lands. The rich farmers flourished, while the cost of the petty farmers or the poor uh, farmers in the country. The small farmers had to sell their farms because of fall in production and an annihilation of the small cottage industries. Thus, the condition of the farmers, they become pitiable because there rose unemployment. They were not provided with proper wages. The conditions were uh, getting deteriorated with the passage of time. And then decrease in trade in England also resulted as a result of the French Revolution. The English goods could not be sent to other European countries or even to European markets, and all the countries which were on friendly terms with France, they sever their trade relation with England, because Napoleon had announced a system which is known as Continental System, which we will talk about in the coming reading what was Continental System, and he imposed this system where all those countries having trade relation with England, uh, they severed they broke their commercial relation with England, which resulted in decrease in trade in England. The pitiable condition of the laborers, the laborers had to work under very severe conditions. They had to work for poor wages. They had to work for 14 to 20 hours a day, and they could not raise their voice for their rights. Thus, they were in very miserable conditions. Uh, there was a situation like the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poor. Then, what were the effects of uh, French Revolution on party politics? Charles Fox, as we talked about, and Edmund Burke, who were the two prominent leader of the Whig Party that we talked in the previous, just a bit early. Fox, as I told you, looked upon Burke as his teacher in politics. To Burke, the French revolutionary, they were the architects of destruction. And when Burke and, uh, and his supporter joined FIT, Fox remained aloof from Burke and the Whig Party. Thus, the Whig Party lose majority in England. These were the political impacts on political politics. And then acceleration in the demands of reforms was another impact of French Revolution, and the French Revolution intensified the law of liberty and occupation. Many top leaders of the country like Gray, Palmer, and Thelwell, they form different uh, societies like London Corresponding Society and Society of Constitutional Institution, as we talked about a bit early, and they all demanded rights, and those rights were social, political, and economics. And finally, in 1932, many reforms were taken in consideration, giving the right of vote to the people, and some factory reforms took place, and industrial reforms took place as a result of this French Revolution. So impacts on Irish politics, because Irish was not yet become the part of England. Their union had not been taken place until now, because the union took place in 1800, and there were separatist movements in Ireland. The situation was very different in Ireland, and it was very difficult for England as well to suppress and to bring stability in Ireland. So the French Revolution had very large impacts on the Irish politics even. The Irish Parliament was under the control of such corrupt and incompetent leader who paid no heed to the will and welfare of the Irish people, because England would send members in the Irish Parliament, and those were landlords who have lands there, and they would not take care of the will and welfare of the people. They were just they were selfish, and they were uh, just filling their pockets, uh, do not taking in consideration the miserable condition of the Irish people. So, Walton, Irish scholar and leader, in 1791, a book which inspired and provoked the Irish people to fight against England for their freedom, and Walton was leading those freedom fighters for their political rights. So the Irish movement could not be suppressed completely, and on the other hand, they they continued to plug the British government. They continued to create problem for British government. Walton was leading those freedom fighters to seek independence from the Ireland, and they were creating problem for Ireland's involved in various activities against the British government. Thus, it also accelerated the union of England and Ireland. So the French people pushed England and Ireland to get united. Uh, this is the most important impacts of the French Revolution. What were the impact of the French Revolution on English literature? English literature greatly inspired by the French Revolution. It influenced many great writers, poets, and other writers and novel writers even, because French Revolution, uh, they were raising voice uh, on three grounds which we talked about in the previous video, that liberty, equality, and fraternity, these three should prevail in the country, because we talked about the French Revolution was less a rebellion against arbitrary rule or despotic rule than a rebellion against inequality. So the writers, they were in favor of democracy, they were in favor of democratic rights, they were in favor of people's rights. To, the people should be given freedom of expression, they should be given rights in all walks of life. Thus, many great poets like and those romantic era poets belonging to romantic era, and in the first generation, second, yes, the first generation of romantic era, they included Coleridge, Byron, and Wordsworth. These three are the first uh, generation of romantic era. In the second generation, we have four poets. In the first generation, we have three poets like Byron, Coleridge, and Shelley. So Wordsworth, they all got inspiration from the French Revolution. They appreciated those slogans and the slogans of equality, liberty, and fraternity. Uh, Burks, who also wrote a book, Reflection on French Revolution, uh, Paine's, Tom Paine, who wrote a book, Right Up Maine, and Saudi also wrote a book known as Life of Nelson. These are considered the best work in English literature. And Wordsworth also wrote a very famous line uh, in his one of his poems, where it is the first line, bliss it was at that age to live, and to be young was very heaven. Bliss it was in that age to live, and to be young was very heaven. Uh, Charles Dickens also wrote a novel, many novels, but in one of his novel, uh, where he starting the novel from the very first sentence and saying that it was the best of time and it was the worst of time, something like that, where he's starting this novel from this very sentences, comparing the two cities, England and France, where England was still struggling to give rights to the people and France had achieved that. So French Revolution influenced the English literature in general and English poetry in particular. So these were the effects of the French Revolution we talked about. In the next lecture, we will talk about with a new topic related to British history. So thank you so much for watching the video, and If there is any question, you can ask in the comments section, and I'm trying to upload these notes in PDF as well so that you may get uh, proper guidelines regarding paper and materials where you can revise these material by the paper a day or 2 days early. So thank you so much for watching the video.